All right. We are finishing the rest of this book. Probably not tonight, but it's like 8 hours or something, or like 20 hours. Fuck. All right. Anyway, back to it.
It's probably the Waterman I gave her. Could be, said Barnett. It was nice, but I didn't check it closely. Kim closed her eyes a moment. Wow, you're a regular Dick Tracy, she said evenly. And did you read the diary? Maybe check out a couple pages? See if she misspelled shit? I only glanced through it enough to see what it was. Nothing more than that. The medical examiner has it now, along with the pen. Kim sucked on her lips and rolled her eyes towards the ceiling. She softened her tone. I'm only asking because there might be a few songs in it that I helped to write.
Kim is Courtney Love in this book.
And I want to lose them. A lot could be my intellectual property too, not just hers. You know what I'm saying? And she also could have written a lot of stories about me I don't want to see getting published.
And they're talking about Christian Path, who actually had pages of her journal ripped out of it at the crime scene of her own death around the week that Kurt was killed.
In the National Enquirer. There's always that possibility. So how long before I can find out what's in there? Tanner shook his head. I don't know if we'll ever be able to share her journal with you, Kim. Her estate might consider that an invasion of her privacy. How's it an invasion of anything if the fucking me and you guys are all reading it? We weren't planning on reading it, Kim, but like I told you before, we can read it if we think there's something inside that pertains to her death. Now, since the ME has it in his hands, we'll probably need to get a court order to get it back, but that can be done easily enough. If we thought she'd received death threats in the last few days or something like that. But not just to find out who was fucking who, asked Kim, right? Tanner stared at Kim evenly and shook his head. Kim closed her eyes and pouted, like a child not used to being told no. I don't think you need to worry, Kim, said Barnett. We don't have the National Enquirer on speed dial, so if we end up reading it, I'm not going to tell them what I read. Kim opened her eyes wide enough to glare at Barnett. If he'd been made of wax, he would have melted. But since we're here, I do have a few more questions for you, said Barnett. If you don't mind. Kim ignored him a moment, shook another cigarette out of the pack on the end table, and lit it with a Zippo lighter which had Tweety Bird pictured on the casing. After she exhaled, she crossed her legs again, this time covering them before she leaned forward. All right, shoot. What have you got? Who's Dayton Muller? Boyfriend or casual acquaintance? Kim stared in Barnett's direction, but her eyes seemed unfocused, as if she weren't seeing him. Fuck buddy is all. Nothing more. She shook her head, the disdain apparent. He meant nothing to her and nothing to anybody else. He's a nobody who probably supplied her with the dope she shot up with last night. He used to be her regular guy for that. I think that's how they met. Hell, he might have been the one who spiked her arm last night and probably wants to blame someone else, maybe the next person who comes along. Sure hope it ain't me. Have you got any idea where he calls home when he wasn't staying with Justine? Asked Dixon. When he's not leeching off Justine, I suspect it's any place he can find to crash around Broadway or Pine Street. Maybe the U District. He's really only a street urchin, and that's all he'll ever be. He told us he lived in her apartment, but when we checked, we found his name wasn't on the lease. So we've locked him out for now, but we'd like to talk to him one more time before he wanders off into the great unknown. Just as well, said Kim. Guy's a no talent, career freeloader. He's a sponge and will never amount to anything. We're concerned that Justine's apartment might have been cleaned out before we got there, said Barnett. Of course, that would reflect.
I'm sorry, but I can't stop thinking about Mark Lanigan and Dylan. Apparently, Dylan and Callie really didn't do it. It was really just, from what I'm told, it was really just Mark Lanigan. And I really want to go over his complete book, the second last book he did before he died. So I hope that's all right. I'm just going to go over a little bit and then take a call from my friend for a little bit, and then I'll be back.
House, everything dope sick I pulled up.
Let's see if we've heard this one.
Chapter 42.
We have
Chapter 42. Last Rungs. After working for Donnie for a while, I gained his trust. I became his confidant, friend even, and began selling on the street for him. It was the same as I had done for Val, getting a couple handfuls of balloons in the morning, selling them downtown, and bringing him back the proceeds in the afternoon. At one point, when his legs were too fucked up to walk on, Donnie sent me out to meet his Mexican connection, Julio, to re-up for him. I was waiting on a corner with $500 in my pocket when an old primer gray Plymouth Duster pulled up. Red? Yeah, that's me. Well, get in, homie. I ain't got all day. I handed him the dough, and he gave me back 3 times the street value in tar. Before getting out, I asked him for his number, looking forward to a time when I could go back into business for myself, and he gave it. Thanks, man, I said. Let's keep this to ourselves, okay? No problem, man. See you around. After a couple of weeks meeting with Julio on Donnie's behalf, I began skimming some of the dope off the top and keeping it for myself. Just a gram or so, not so much that he'd notice, but in time I became more brazen. One day, after I brought the package back to Donnie, he looked at it hard, then at me. This is light, Red. Are you ripping me off? No way, Donnie. You better hope not, pal. This is what he gave me. If you're lying to me, I'm going to fuck you up. Empty your pockets, motherfucker. I could feel beads of sweat forming on my face as I turned my pockets inside out. All I had in them was...
Oh, sorry, just a second.
Change, a used outfit, a Reese's peanut butter cup, a packet of zigzag papers, and a couple cigarette butts. Luckily, I'd stashed the dope inside a small open seam in the waistband of my jeans where I always hid shit. Donnie calmed down and then started cooking up a couple shots for us, to my profound relief. But suddenly there was a different dynamic at play. Donnie made little attempt to disguise his newfound suspicion of me. His edema was blowing up and causing him excruciating pain. Leaving the bed was torture for him. Unable to get off the ground, his legs swollen to twice their normal size. Donnie no longer trusted me with his livelihood, but I was his only option to pick up the shit from Julio. I saw the writing on the wall and knew my days were numbered. The next time Donnie sent me out to re-up, I made a desperate, foolhardy decision. I met Julio on the corner with the grand Donnie had given me, got the dope, and instead of returning to Donnie's, hopped on a city bus headed to the far side of Capitol Hill. I holed up in the house of some using acquaintances for a few days, sharing some dope with them in exchange for a bed. After a week...
Okay. We really did hear that one. All right.
I was functioning as... Epilogue. The wolf...
No. Oh, my God.
Chapter 32. Family Reunion.
No.
Chapter 43. Psychic Storms, Epiphany, and Rebirth. The next few days were lost in a hazy cloud of phenobarb-induced dreamscape horizons. I was aware of crashing wind and rain, a huge ceaseless storm outside shaking and pounding the bungalow I occupied. I kept having the same dream over and over. Sitting in a chair in the same room where I slept through my kick, it would burst into flames. The walls, ceiling, and floor all at once, engulfing everything in fire, myself included. I woke only to get another dose of meds and go back under. I would come to from time to time and see a plate of food on the stand next to the bed, but would instantly roll over and pass out again. At some point, the nurse made me get up out of bed and get undressed. She put me on a stool in the shower where I sat dry heaving under the hot water for 20 minutes. So weak I was barely able to stay on the chair. Later, I became conscious of someone cutting my hair, but it seemed more like an imaginary midnight movie scene as I was sitting in a lawn chair, unable to lift my head off my chest. Late morning on the 5th day, I lay in bed in total darkness, slightly uncomfortable and unable to sleep all day now that I was being slowly weaned off the meds. There came a light knocking on my door. Go away, I said. Now a louder knock. Go away, I'm sleeping. The door opened a crack and a guy stuck his large round head in. "Hey man, how you doing? The nurses told me your story and it sounds a lot like mine. I'm Kenny." I raised up in bed about to go off on this fucking jerk when I saw his profile in the light. He looked familiar, but in a way I couldn't place. "I know you." "Well, yeah, man, I'm a musician too. I was in a band called Autograph." That band name instantly cast my mind back to my high school days. I'd skip sixth period every day to go drink beer and smoke weed at Matt Barnum's house, getting him to listen to cassette tapes of my punk rock records and watching MTV with the sound off. Of all the terrible hair metal videos they aired, the one that particularly drew my ire was Turn Up the Radio by Autograph. I hated it so much that one day it had come on and I'd thrown a full can of beer at my friend's mother's TV set. I especially detested the horrible hammy mugging by the camera-hogging drummer. Now, during arguably the worst stretch of my life, that same dude was actually in my sick room. My mind was blown, the irony too cruel for my brain to process. I begged him to leave, and he finally relented, only to return a week or so later, the beginning of an unlikely friendship between this still over-the-top character and myself. His name was Kenny Richards. After the storm subsided, I was finally able to shake off the imaginary steel band that had been threatening to make my skull implode. The beautiful California sun had emerged from behind the storm clouds, and an orderly had set me up in a lawn chair on the impeccably groomed, endless expanse of gorgeous green lawn on the hospital grounds. I sat there alone, basking in the not too hot, not too cool air. My hair was short and clean, as were my clothes. I had awakened one day to find my room filled with several bags of brand new clothes that Courtney had sent over. I felt more aware and alive than I could ever remember, although my arms looked as though I'd tried to kill myself, white bandages from wrist to elbow. I was no longer imprisoned by any drug, did not have to hit the streets and hustle. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be at all. It was an exceptionally peaceful moment. I marveled at my incredible good fortune. I smiled, then began to laugh, then laughed maniacally. I had escaped. I had survived. They had failed to destroy me, and I had woken up here in paradise. "I'm still here, motherfuckers. You can't kill me," I howled hysterically at the sky. Before my sick crowing had even receded, an unwelcome truth lodged itself in my head. Anything that happens next can only be worse than what came before. That degree of suffering was beyond my imagination. My manic laughter turned instantly into uncontrollable sobbing. I hadn't cried in a long time. It felt as though the tears were being ripped from inside whatever I had that passed for a soul, clawed out from that lifelong aching place. I moaned and gasped, unable to catch my breath. Suddenly, spontaneously, out of a moment of abject despair, I said out loud, "God, change me." I had never believed in a traditional Christian God or in any supreme being. I had hated sitting through midnight mass, Catholic weddings, Catholic funerals, and especially those torturous Wednesday morning masses at the mission I was forced to endure before getting in line for soup and sandwiches. I didn't know who I was calling out to, but the second I cried out for mercy, I was nailed by some invisible but overwhelming force, as powerful and sudden as a shotgun blast. A surreal, instantaneous 16 hits of acid epiphany, as though I had pissed on an incredibly powerful electric fence. I was knocked from my chair, and my life flashed before my eyes. My wasted childhood, my arrogant youth, my anger and obsessions, crime, delusions, self-loathing, paranoia, hopelessness, fury, and the sad, junky downward spiral. I'd heard that cliche a million times. My life flashed before my eyes, but I finally understood what that meant. In that single instant, it had been powerfully, intensely true, the most authentic experience of my entire life in 1 second on the lawn of a Los Angeles psychiatric hospital. Lying there, sobbing in the grass for the first time ever, I stared directly and honestly into the mirror of my life. In an instant, I saw that my entire life's way of thinking and behaving was the corrupted opposite of what it should be. My morbid thought process was the wrong side of right. I had grown up believing you took whatever you could from whoever you could and always looked out for number one, screwing anyone and everyone in the process. From my earliest childhood memories, I had been a thief and a flagrant, transparent, nonstop liar and cheat. Music, which I had loved, which I had lived for, which I credited with giving me a life, had long ago become just a means to an end. Sex, money, drugs, a place to crash, a bargaining chip, a free ride, whatever I could milk from it. I'd been a rank nihilist who lived every day with an obsessive, burning need to pay back twice as hard anybody who fucked me, and spent hours in my mind digging the graves of my enemies, real and imagined. My extreme retrograde sickness had cut me open and left me eviscerated. I had asked to be changed, and now, in a second, I was changed. Maybe not by anybody else's God, but by some very real force that intervened in the life of one sad piece of human roadkill the moment it was asked to. In order to survive, in order to move forward, I would have to change every single fucking sorry thing about myself. I would have to start over again, clean.
All right, that's it for now. But yeah, from what I know, it was mainly just Mark Lanigan taking part in the attack on Kurt in the basement. And that's why in Nirvana, the autobiography, Callie is bringing Jessica down to the basement to retrieve a burnt piece of carpet that he apparently dropped a flaming log onto. I think Jessica didn't know that they were getting rid of evidence at that point, but she knew that something weird was going down and went down that week that Kurt apparently disappeared and was killed, because she was at the house and he was too. What do you guys think about Mark Lanigan's involvement, and how, I guess it doesn't matter if certain YouTubers are not saying his name and everything that happened. What matters is that I do that or somebody else does it. So that's what we're going to do here. I've already reached out to a lot of people and newspapers. Now we're just waiting a response. But what do you guys think about Mark Lanigan now that you heard all that? He'd rip people off and steal from them and beat them up for $20. Do you think he would do it for thousands? I'm not friends with anyone that Mark Lanigan knows. I don't think I am. And so I am free to talk about this without having to be afraid of losing their friendship. When you're doing an investigation, you shouldn't become, friends with the people that are being accused of the murder, because then you're compromised. You just want to keep those friendships. It's completely clear, though, what has happened. And Dylan ratted on himself to Maureen Herman when they were getting high on heroin, so that's good. Heroin was Dylan's downfall as well. And I'm actually going to find that video by the Kurt Cobain Club Mystique.
The ringing stopped. I picked up my bass and started to leave, and it started again. After the third round, exasperated, with a taxi I didn't want to lose waiting out front, I plopped down on the bed and picked up and said, "What?" On the other end was a hysterical woman.
He's gone. He killed himself, screamed the hysterical woman loudly. Wait, who is this? I didn't know who he was, and I didn't know who she was. It's Courtney. Where's Kat? She's at the club. Who is this? She asked. She must have gotten the hotel room number from our manager. It's Maureen. He fucking killed himself. Kurt fucking shot himself. Maureen, he fucking shot himself. Tell Kat to call me right now. Please have her call me. She was sobbing hysterically and said the same thing 7 different ways as though neither of us could believe what she was saying and we were trying to get the lines right. That's okay, this was not a message I wanted to get wrong. I told her I was heading back to the club now and would have Kat call immediately. Presumably, she went on to the next shocked recipient of a call from Courtney Love on the day Kurt Cobain's body was found in his seat home with a gunshot wound to the head, a shotgun at his side. I thought I should call the club. I didn't even have the itinerary with me, let alone my purse. The taxi was waiting. I don't know how the fuck we toured without cell phones and GPS, but we did. Whatever number I got out of the phone book was going to be an automated message about upcoming shows and how to buy tickets. I wasn't going to get a person. But this show and album, royalties, was going to turn out well for anyone playing with Courtney. It was a fucking shame. About a year or so later, one night in Seattle, I hooked up with someone who could get interesting drugs. His name was Dylan Carlson. That name means something to those who subscribe to Kurt and Courtney conspiracy theories, but I didn't know who he was. I just knew we had the same drug proclivities and mutual friends and bands, and he could apparently score. I remember him sitting there, in a wooden chair, looking uncomfortable, but also relieved and open. We weren't hooking up, we were just hanging and doing drugs together. It was cocaine or speed, I don't remember. But it turns out he was glad to be with someone who didn't know that he gave Kurt Cobain the gun that he killed himself with. That in fact it was his gun. I didn't know it was rumored that he found Kurt's body, but did not report it right away. And because I wasn't hanging around him for that reason, which I see now was something that probably happened a lot after Kurt died, I wasn't curious. I didn't know to be. And maybe that's why he started talking about it. Because it could be on his terms, not like an inquisition or investigation. He wanted to talk about it. He seemed like he needed to talk about it. Imagine what it would feel like to have given someone a gun that they then killed themselves with. He told me that he was the one in the Nirvana song, In Bloom. He's the one who likes all our pretty songs, and he likes to sing along and he likes to shoot his gun, but he don't know what it means. He couldn't believe I didn't know that. As if he hadn't been around anyone who didn't know that, for Ian's. You could tell he was happy about it, but also tortured, what with the gun part. I didn't know what was public and what was not. He said that he and Courtney found Kurt's body before the police did, but they didn't know what to do, so they waited. I nodded, understanding. There was no foul play, and I didn't suspect any. Frankly, if I was a drug addict who had just given my gun to someone who then blew their head off with it, I would wait till someone else discovered the body, too.
So that day would have been April 7th, Thursday, when Tom Grant flew down to Seattle and Dylan was there. He met with Dylan and Mark, and Courtney was there. I believe that. It's that story that Maureen Herman's just said right there. Because he was known for telling people, I'm the one that got Kurt the gun when he was sitting down with them. So I believe this experience too. So that was Thursday, April 7th, 1994. And that would have been when more of the staging of the crime scene happened, because obviously he was killed. Dylan just wasn't being completely honest there, but he did let a little bit out. Probably just because it was weighing down on him, like she said. So, because he's seen it with Courtney and Tom was there, that would mean they're all in on it. Because Tom's covering all that stuff. But Dylan admitted it. So it wasn't Brown that he was smoking. It was something else that... I'm glad Dylan was on drugs. I'm glad he said that. drugs can be his downfall too, and they obviously are in this case.
Or near Easter or something. Want to know, while we're all sharing, how I ended up with Tom Grant? It was a Sunday or near Easter or something. I called the manager. He had split the rehab. I called because I fucking knew. The nurse said he'd gone for a chest x-ray. Fucking chest x-ray? I also knew Steve Scappa, the shrink, who's a total loser and still gets the rockstar junkies, but doesn't bother telling them this major fuck-up of his. The ego. This shithead was like a peacock. He would control Kurt. No one else was allowed to call him. As soon as this nurse says chest x-ray, I'm like a fucking lightning bolt, calling the head of the hospital. In my soul, I know I've just missed him, but he's got to be in LA with Perry Farrell? Where's he going to go? I jump in a cab and go to Nyler's house. I don't know where Perry lives anymore. I'm calling Eric in Seattle and screaming at him to check the airline schedule. The assholes at Exodus won't confirm whether Kurt's gone. They're being dicks, but I know chest x-ray means they can't find him. Charlie Cross, the guy who wrote the book coming out, thinks Kurt was there at Nyler's house. I believe that Kurt was in the back room at Nyler's. He copped and got on a plane to Seattle. You know...
All right, I'll be right back. I have to end this, but I'll be right back.